It's there we go.
Okay, perfect. Okay, well, welcome to another Alumni Pathway conversation. This one is with my Phung, who graduated from UNIS in 2016. So we're super grateful to have you here today, Mai. I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit of what you have been up to since you graduated from UNIS.
Yeah, definitely. So, I graduated from UNIS in 2016. Then I moved to Manchester for uni, where I studied sociology for 3 years. So I graduated back in 2019, and ever since then, I've been working for KPMG for the last 3 years.
Wow, KPMG from studying sociology. How did that happen?
Yeah, it's quite a change in career path, but basically, I think in the UK, just some context as to how I ended up in KPMG, which is in the UK, you don't really need an accounting and finance degree to go into like become an auditor or work in finance, because either way, whether you study accounting and finance or not at uni, you will still have to go on to get the ACA qualification, or in the US, that would be the CPA qualification to become a chartered accountant. So that is when we'd go through like 15 exams to become a chartered accountant. And this is basically like a training contract where we're taking exams and working at the same time. So then, because of that, that's because it doesn't really matter what you learned at uni. That's why I've managed to kind of make that jump into a whole different field, basically.
Wow, and what prompted that? Like, how did you know to go from sociology to accounting?
I think there were two main things, which is the first one is that, to be honest, I was interested in sociology, which is why I chose to study it in uni. But the reality of it was I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do in terms of work later on, because it's quite an open-ended degree where, I was in this dilemma where people were saying, oh, with a sociology degree, you could do anything because, you're learning about the society, you're learning about econ somewhat, you're learning about education and how that affects how society has been formed. But then I was just kind of like, you're saying that I could become anything, but that's too broad. Like, what do I actually then become? So then I kind of spoke quite a bit to people that I know, my friends, professors, family, family friends, just to ask them, so how was it when they first made that jump into, the adult world of like work? How did they find their job and find out what is it that they wanted to do? And it was actually my mum who mentioned, because she was saying, oh, maybe try the Big Four because they'll hire people from any degree. So I was just like, well, I've got nothing to lose. And like, I don't know what is it that I want to become. So I'm quite open-minded towards anything at this point. And to be honest, like I was always a bit petrified about going into finance because, um, much to Mr. Fairbairn's disappointment, math has never really been my strength. So I thought, if math is not my strength, then I might struggle in the world of finance. And I didn't do a bachelor in econ or anything like that. So I thought that might be like a weakness for me. But then it was just a mindset of, well, I've got nothing to lose, just go for it and give it a go. So in second year of uni, so this was the year before I graduated. In the summer of second year of uni, I applied to do an internship with KPMG, and basically these internships, at the end of the internship, usually there's a possibility that you'll get a training contract for after you graduate. So that was one of my tactics as well, which is I was only interested in internships that will give me a job immediately after I graduate. So and that's why I focused on the bigger firms as well, because smaller firms just don't kind of offer that. Not to mention like all the admin side of like visa sponsorship, and all that. So I had to take it from like a more realistic perspective. So then I applied to KPMG, got the internship in my second year, and then by the end of that internship, I got an offer to come back to work for them after graduation. So then by the time I went into third year of uni, it was all sorted for when I graduate.
Wow, that's like an amazing story, and one that I really am hoping will resonate with students as they start to think, well, what if I don't know what to do? And I love that you were reaching out to all of your contacts saying, like, how do I get into the adult world and what does
Yeah.
that look? And so the internships, did you have to actively go out and seek that, or was that just part of your uni?
I went to look for it on my own, but to be fair, like in every uni, they do quite a bit of like career fairs, kind of like uni fairs back in Unis. So employers would come set up their own booth, and you can go around and ask them to see what is it that they offer, and then from then on, you can then go on to the website and read a bit more about the application process. What is it that you do day to day in your internship? And what kind of future prospect that might come as the result of the internship. But I would encourage people to go to those career fairs and get business cards, because then at least you have some sort of contacts that you can email just to ask, like, when our applications opened, what will be the what will the application process be like, or when you apply, it's inevitable sometimes companies do take quite a while before they get back to you. So if you do have some sort of contacts from that place, you can always drop them a message just to be like, just checking my application has gotten lost or something, just to follow up with your application and make sure it goes somewhere.
That sounds like great advice. And I love hearing how you said, like, make sure you actually go to the career fair. Kind of
Yeah.
similar to like, make sure you actually go and meet the universities when they come to UNIS, right?
Yeah. And to be fair, when you speak to those people, you kind of get a brief, like, understanding of what the people who work there are like, just from the recruiter themselves, because you can make lots of observations from those career fairs based off of how the recruiters are dressed, how they speak, what kind of information they tell you, and you can kind of gauge what kind of environment that business would then have, what kind of culture that they cultivate, and then from then on kind of decide, yeah, I kind of liked the sound of that, how they looked, how they approached me, and then I'll apply there. Or, oh, I think that was a bit too formal for my liking. I don't think that's the environment I want to be a part of. And it kind of helps you to start forming and start to kind of deduce what is it that you want to do later on, really.
Yeah, that sounds like really good advice. I know when we started this project, the idea was for grade 10s, but I'm really thinking we need to
Yeah.
get these messages out to our grade 12 graduates right now.
Yeah, because I mean, like, even in uni, I feel like unless you go, you ask somebody who has already gone through the process, or you just luckily stumble across somebody with all these, knowledge about it, you don't really get taught about it. Like, I don't think even throughout uni, nobody really speaks to us about this is how you get a job, this is how you get an internship. It's more of like, if you're curious and you want to go for it, then you kind of do the research yourself. Otherwise, it's kind of like every man for themselves kind of thing.
And did it feel cutthroat like that at your university, or like was there lots of support like from
Um,
wherever?
well, I think I was, well, I consider it to be lucky in the sense that because I was in sociology, going into the big four is not a common path for most people. So I never really felt pressure from my year of other people also being like, oh yeah, I'm also applying to the big four or to like investment banking. So I was just kind of like, yeah, I'm doing whatever it is that I'm doing. And for most of the time when I say like I'm applying to KPMG to my friends or professors, they're always like how you reacted earlier, which is how did you get there? Like how did you make this connection? So I was just kind of doing my own thing. But when I joined and I was asking other people that joined in the same time at the same time as I did, who did accounting and finance or econ, PPE back in uni, and they said that it is quite competitive because you look around and everybody's applying to the same big firms, big corps. So the competition definitely would feel a lot more intense in that environment. Whereas I think for in my scenario, like in my circumstance, it was a bit different, I think.
Yeah, I find that really interesting. So you ended up where they were all aiming for, but by a totally different path, which probably
Yeah.
made you look really interesting because it was a different path.
Yeah, so, because I mentioned about how I was aware that there are weaknesses that I had when going into this job where, I don't have accounting and finance, knowledge at all. I've never had any exposure to it. But I think this is applicable when you apply to a job or applying to uni, whatever kind of application you're doing. It's a good advice of whatever weakness you think you have, somehow try to turn that into a strength of how that could that how you can become like an asset to that company. So in my situation, I said, yeah, I'm aware I have zero accounting knowledge, but why don't you look at it from the perspective of, I'm like a blank A4 piece of paper. You can train me however you want to train me. Like I'm out here to learn. Like I'm happy to learn. I'm happy to put in the hard work to become the kind of employee you need from me. Whereas, you could come from a background of accounting and finance, but I think sometimes that could be a weakness because you think, "Oh, I know accounting and finance," and you can kinda become a bit more rigid, and you're not as open-minded coming into the job, and then it could be I said that it could be more of a struggle to train those people than people like me where I'm like, "Well, yeah, I don't know anything, so happy to learn, happy to improve."
I love it. I would have loved to have been in your interview and hearing you say, treat
Yeah.
me like a blank A4. Like,
Yeah.
that is awesome.
Yeah, so I said I literally did say, like, I'm like a blank piece of paper. You could trade me however you want. Doesn't that sound like a dream?
Wow. I love the confidence that you're exuding and would have walked in with as well. So you've been able to stay in the UK even though like you graduated a number of years ago?
Yeah, so I think now the rules has changed for the UK where after you graduate, you can apply for a post graduation visa for up to 2 years, I believe, where you can find a job. So that gives people a lot more time to find what is that they want to do. Whereas when I was going through uni, we have 3 months after graduation before our visa expired, which is the reason why I started in my second year because then because the awful thing is when you apply to jobs, the first question is, do you need a visa sponsorship every time, regardless of the company? So then I was aware that if I don't start early and give them a heads up of I need visa, um, that could be a ground for them to reject me purely on the basis of they can't be bothered. And then that's also the reason why I had to aim for bigger companies because only they would have the resources to sponsor visas. So then that's why I started from second year of uni, give them plenty of time to prepare all the paperwork to sponsor me post graduation. Whereas I've had friends where during my time, they really struggled in their third year of uni. You have the stress of how do I graduate, and now you have the stress of figuring out what is it that I want to do, and hit with the harsh reality of they could deny you on the basis of you don't have a lot of time for us to prepare the paperwork for visa. So then it's one of those things where preparation, like prepare if you prepare in advance and give yourself and your uh, future employer as much time as possible, can only help you really.
Yeah, such great advice. I think there's
Yeah.
so many like nuggets I'm stealing from what you've had to say. So just a couple more here. If you were to tell your grade 10 self, so like your 15, 16-year-old self, some advice or like if you could do something over again, like what might you tell yourself?
I think one advice would be choose something that you want to study in uni based on what you like instead of what you think your future career might like. Obviously, this takes into consideration that, say, if you want to become a doctor or a lawyer, something that is highly specific, then yeah, this doesn't really apply because you do have to take those degrees to become to do those jobs. But I think the remaining degrees, to a certain extent, especially with the humanities, um, what you learn from uni, what you'll realize at the end of your bachelor degree is that what we learn at uni is still quite surface level. It's not in depth because that's what masters and PhD and what researchers do. So when you learn, it's still quite like this is an introduction to sociology, an introduction to econ. So it's the purpose of uni is more teaching you the skills, analysis skills, communication skills, all of those skills that you can then take on to your future jobs. So I wouldn't stress too much about finding the right degree for yourself. Personally, I would choose something that I genuinely would enjoy to learn in uni to make your uni years as enjoyable as possible. And I firmly believe that the hardest bit about applying to university is getting into the uni, because once you get into the uni, say after first year, after 6 months, you realize, you know what, this degree really is not it for me. You always have the option to switch degree, and it happens really common. It happens quite regularly, and the process to switch departments is actually not that bad. But the hardest bit is to get yourself in a good uni first. So try to not stress yourself out too much, because to be fair, like, to place such a decision on 16 and 17-year-olds to be like, what is it that you want to study and what is it that you want to become later on, is such a huge decision, and it can be quite daunting. But I think just take a breather and know that, like, that decision is not going to be the end all and be all for the rest of your career.
I love it. Um, and then just to final, so you went through our IB diploma program.
Yeah.
Do you feel that that helped prepare you, or like what did you do at UNIS? Do you feel like did it help prepare you for what you were going to study, or
Um, well, uni was definitely not as hard as IB. I feel um I think the good thing about UNIS is that I think you don't really I mean, I knew that what we learned at UNIS was quite intense, and we do cover quite a bit with the IB. But I don't think you realize just how rigorous the program was, because in UNIS everybody's doing the same thing. And when we interact with other schools like international schools in APAC or Marissa, they're all doing the IB, so they're all on the same boat. But when you go into uni, you start to interact with people that did not do the IB. They went to normal schools, did the A levels and stuff like that. And it really kicks in when you realize the skills to write an essay, such as something as simple as you need an introductory paragraph, body paragraphs, conclusion, and then each paragraph you need a topic sentence, and then how you structure your writing. Something that is so like basic at UNIS. But when you come into uni, some people genuinely don't know that you need those kind of structure when you write your paragraph. So I think my point here is that UNIS really prepares you for all the fundamentals, the basics of what makes a piece of writing. For in my case, we write a lot of essays, what it means to write an essay, and that already puts you way ahead of so many people, and it really impresses your professors, because you have to keep in mind that they do have to deal with people that honestly don't know how to write versus you who already have all these basics. So I think the rigorousness of the IB program, even though during the time when we do it, it seems like such a pain, but it does pay off to a certain extent. Obviously, I don't know if what it must be like in like a natural science kind of program in uni, but from a humanities perspective, then that really helped. And then that is on the academic side. I think on the more social side, at UNIS, I think because we are in such an international environment and we do interact with so many people, whether it's our teachers, friends, we go to so many events, that it really prepares us on how we should kind of um, what is it? How we should present ourselves in different settings. And I think that really helped when it came to finding a job, speaking to recruiters, because you know what it means to present yourself in a formal setting versus when you're just speaking to your friends. And that in itself gives you a lot of benefit of the doubt. It actually gives you a lot of credits. It gives you a good first impression. And that in itself can take you quite far versus somebody who has never really had that kind of exposure before. They really struggle to speak in a formal setting, and that can, unfortunately, that can really put them at a loss, really. So I think UNIS prepares you more than you actually realize, and then when you are in the real world, it starts to kick in, and you're just like, oh, so that's not the norm, and that's just something that we harbored from UNIS, and it's something that I think it came to me, and every now and again I sit down and I'm just like, well, thank goodness my parents invested in this.
Oh, that's such a nice way to end. I'm so grateful for your time and all that you've shared. I really do think that the value for this is pretty tremendous for students to hear this message.
Yeah.
So thank you. I am going to stop the recording, but if you could just hold on for a sec, my
Yeah, no worries.